Hey, what's up, you guys? Bloody Jacob here to bring you my weekly review of Supernatural on the CW. This week we've seen Season 12, Episode 12, which is called Stuck in the Middle with You. And, I apologize for the lateness, but again, work. I've been working, pretty close to every day this week. Also got a few days in a row coming up again, so as always, I apologize for all the lateness of my reviews lately, this Vampire Diaries, stuff like that. But I was happy to jump on this episode when I got home tonight, and let me tell you, this was a damn good episode. I really enjoyed it. Season 12 has sort of been a bit of a mixed bag for me. I mean, we've had really good episodes like Celebrating the Life of Asa Fox, Alicia Witt's episode, Lily Sonder Has Some Regrets. Those are my two favorites, and this episode really brought it. This and those two are probably my favorites of the season thus far. And with the hook they had at the end of the episode, I think it's probably going to redeem the parts of the season I didn't like if it keeps going this way. Which we'll talk more about at the end of the review. But this episode at first seems to have a fairly simple premise. And I was also pretty happy with last week's episode, by the way. I forgot to mention that regarding Dean. That was a really good one as well. But this one I probably like just a bit more. And this episode, it had a seemingly simple premise, with the way this episode was edited, the way they put it together, we found out, different things at different times. We got a little more context on why certain things were going a certain way. So that made it a little bit different to watch. Because at first we initially think it's just Mary calling in the boys to help with a contact of hers in this hunt, and it turns out to be so much more. With Mary, trying to continue her deal with the British men of letters and such, and pretty much the can of worms they end up opening when they go there. It really turns into a shit show for them, to say the least. But this is a really nice episode. We also have a fellow hunter named Wally. Yeah, Wally. We've seen him previously with Mr. Kesh, trying to approach him, but of course he refused. And we see him in this, we see that him and Mary agreed, to make it seem like it's an idea of his or something he was hunting, so the brothers aren't quite as suspicious as to what she's actually looking for, which is actually something that Mr. Ketch and the other British men of letters wanted. We'll talk more about Mary here in a few minutes. But this demon, Wally acts like he's never, really tangled with the demon before. Maybe he has, maybe he hasn't. We don't know if that part was a lie or not. But it turns out to be not just a regular demon. At first I would have been, in a way, fine with that if it was just like a demon who's somehow managed to survive a while, or if, just a demon who's chosen to live in, solitude or something. That could have been interesting in and of itself. But he turned out to be someone named Ramiel. I may be just butchering that name. But I really liked him in this episode. He was played by Jerry Trimble. I think he did a pretty good job. I wouldn't have minded him being a character we've seen for, a good handful of this second half of the season. But I thought he was pretty cool, and he turned out to have far more importance than we initially realized, because when his eyes glow yellow, I sort of stopped and, paid attention about 10 times more than I already was. Because, of course, yellow eyes reminds us of course, Azazel. And we get a little bit more information on Azazel in this episode and what he actually was. I always wondered about that, why was he the only one with the yellow eyes, that we've ever seen on the show. And now we find out there's 3 or 4 of them out there, basically as this, first initial army, to, of course, march on heaven and such. We had heard some little things about that before, I think, but we never really seen much of it, and now we do, and so I really like that tie-in there, and that, when they mention the name Azazel, they show the little flashbacks of him. I still like it they show, they're still a little bit wary of, how, their, situation with him in the first couple of seasons and such. because he was the first major villain on the show, and the whole arc with him I thought was actually pretty good. Start, and it's still one of my favorite parts of the show, so I like that tie back quite a bit. And then Ramiel, he turned out to have this. They thought it was a spear, but it was actually this lance of Michael's, and it turns demons to dust, or like poof. But for some reason, it actually slowly kills angels when it stabs them instead. So he has a hold of that. That's no good. When we find out that he actually had previous dealings with Crowley, it was good to see Crowley again. And he was who Crowley initially approached to take over Hell when Lucifer was locked up again at the end of season 5. But it looks like Ramiel actually is the one that encouraged or, sort of inspired Crowley to take it for himself, because even Ramiel meeting Crowley once for a couple minutes, he's seen, like how he said, like he's manipulative, he's, cunning, but he's also, slimy enough and stuff like that to be the leader. And Ramiel, he explains that not all of them are like, Lucifer fanatics like Azazel was. Him and the others, they didn't really cling on to it as much. Or they didn't just really follow him blindly, basically. So I like how all that was explained. I liked Crowley's involvement in this episode. And it had some really good action, too. I mean, I like the fight scenes with Ramiel. Seeing everyone get dominated was a little bit different. But I like that Dean actually got some decent... he was able to fight back and forth with Ramiel briefly when they confronted him in the barn, so I like, they show Dean can still hold his own even against something like that, to an extent anyway. But Mary in this episode, a lot of people seem to not really like Mary in this season. I just appreciate that they brought her back for the sake of the characters, what that does for them, that dynamic it brings. I think there's been some good scenes out of the Mary stuff this season. But I will say this episode, she did bug me a little bit. The fact that, they got into all this shit because of, her working behind their backs more closely with the British Men of Letters, and then the fact that even when their life was, directly on the line towards the end, she didn't really come out and say it was her who, stole, it turns out to be the Colt. We see the Colt again out of his safe. So, she promises to, burn the British Men of Letters down herself if they put her boys in peril like that again, but I feel like Mary should have, already said something about it. I don't know. So that part I kind of question a little bit, but that's not necessarily a flaw of the show. It's maybe just, maybe we're not supposed to like Mary too much in this situation. I don't know. But the rest of the episode is really, really good. Like I said, I like the action. Wally is killed by one of the demons that show up. And it was just a really, really good episode. And Sammy actually ends up killing Ramiel with a spear. And I sort of like how Ramiel reacted to it. He just started laughing before he finally, disintegrated or whatever. That was good. And I also really like the opening, diner scenes that we got. It was a bit more of the comical part of the episode that we got. With Dean trying to help, Castiel hit on this waitress that showed interest in him and such. At first, Dean seems offended that she was attracted to Castiel, not him. That stuff was pretty fun, I think. So again, Supernatural, it's, probably the show that's done best with this I've ever seen. They can mix in little bits of humor like that, but also have a seriously good episode like this. And this is another prime example of that. And the major reveal at the end of the episode, taunting Crowley at the end when he sits down on his throne, saying eventually the brothers are going to come for him, they don't care about him. This has been bashed into Crowley's head repeatedly by, his mother, and now Lucifer, who is sitting in the room beside his throne. Crowley is trying to treat him like a dog, like how he was treated earlier on. It must be some, hell-proofed cage or something like that. But we see Lucifer and his Mark fucking Pellegrino playing Lucifer again. We see his eyes light up. It's obviously him, the way he talks. I didn't really like the Rick Springfield Lucifer stuff this season. For some reason, Lucifer just seemed like a far more dull and flat, generic villain. But with Mark Pellegrino back, I can feel his personality again. I can feel more character to him that I knew Lucifer for on the show. So I'm very happy about this. I hope we get to see more of him this season, and he feels more like Lucifer we know and love. But yeah, I was very happy with that hook, and overall I really enjoyed this episode. I'm going to rate it a 9.2 out of 10. I liked it that much. Easily one of the best of the season, along with a few others I mentioned. Let me know what you guys thought about this one. And so follow me on Facebook, Twitter, subscribe, and I'll be uploading my review of the Vampire Diaries episode probably at some point tomorrow, I want to say. So look out for that, and peace.